Hi, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Profits. We're so excited to have you guys here today for another video. We're doing Week 5 Stardom and Situm. And now, based on requests, I'm going to do this video a little bit different than I've done the past videos. Gotten multiple requests to talk about more players. So I'm going to talk about more players. I'm going to talk about more players less. So each guy is going to get a little bit less of an argument. It doesn't mean that there's any less thought that I put into it. It just means that I won't want to make this video too long. Try to keep it around 10 minutes or so. Pretty simple, pretty safe. It also means that I'm making a lot of predictions. And because I'm making a lot of predictions, you're probably not going to agree with all of them, and most of you are probably going to let me have it in the comments below, but whatever. In addition, I still can't cover every player at every position, so ask questions. I have to apologize. Last week I got really busy. I had some papers and a lot of stuff due on Monday, and so I didn't check the comments for about a day and a half, and I missed some questions that people had that I didn't see till like Sunday afternoon. I apologize for that. I'll do a better job this week. Without any further ado, let's just get started. Quarterbacks. All right, now some of these quarterbacks look obvious. Well, first of all, when I'm talking about a lot of guys, some of them are obvious. Tom Brady, obviously start Tom Brady is the GOAT, really. Not much else to say there. Against Tampa Bay is a great matchup. Dak Prescott has a really great matchup against Green Bay, so I really particularly like that. We're going to hopefully see him light it up. And Rodgers versus Dallas, I'm expecting that to be quite a shootout. The one that most people probably aren't expecting is Brian Hoyer versus Indiana. I actually kind of like Brian Hoyer a little bit playing for San Francisco. I think that he's a little bit underrated of a quarterback. Sure, he doesn't have the most weapons, but Indianapolis has a very poor defense. And I also think that the 49ers don't have a very powerful run game, so they kind of rely on Brian Hoyer to make some things happen, especially in the fourth quarter. Either way, if the 49ers are going to win, Brian Hoyer is going to throw touchdowns. And then I'm going to have to say to sit Cam Newton. Cam Newton's an athletic quarterback, but that offense is struggling, and I really like that Detroit defense. I think they're going to have a good week. I'm going to say sit Winston against the Patriots. The Patriots had a bad week last week, and I think that they're going to come out, and I have a feeling Tampa Bay is going to face the repercussions of Patriots' stumble last week. They're kind of an angry team, and they usually follow up bad weeks with some pretty good weeks. Now, they have struggled, but still Tom Brady. It's still Bill Belichick. I'm not too worried about him. Moving on, going to have to say sit Jared Goff against Seattle. I have a feeling that's going to be a fairly low-scoring affair. Seattle has such a great defense, and the Rams are defensively focused, so I don't think this is going to be much of a shootout. And finally, Russell Wilson playing the Rams. Again, that's just a low-scoring affair. And another offense, Wilson's offense in Seattle has just been slow. This hasn't been great. They haven't looked too pretty this year. They've had some real struggles. They don't have any, big star power, real wideouts. Maybe Baldwin, but that's a stretch. Graham has underplayed. They have no run game. That offensive line has been very underperforming, I would say. I think they're a bit better than they've shown so far, but still not great. So it's been a pretty ugly year for that offense. Anyways, we'll move on. Move on to the running back. If you need a running back this week, a guy to pick up and start is Aaron Jones for Green Bay. Last week he scored a touchdown. I believe he got, 13 carries, which was actually the most carries out of any Green Bay running back. Ty Montgomery's pretty banged up, and I think Aaron Jones is going to have a much larger role this week, especially in the red zone. So he's a guy to start if you need another guy. You see the rest of this list as far as starting running backs, Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Todd Gurley, is unbelievably obvious. Yeah, we're not dumb. Start these guys. You're not dumb. I don't think that you're surprised by that. Here's what I'll say. This week seemed to have the least running back talent that I have seen all year through all the other 4 weeks that I have remember seeing in a long time. I wouldn't put my faith in too many guys this week. I just do not trust many of them. But those 5 guys I trust for certain, and basically everybody else I maybe at best sort of trust somewhat. Moving on, sitting guys, Melvin Gordon, I'm going to have to say sit Melvin Gordon against the New York Giants. New York Giants actually has a semi-solid run defense, and he hasn't been getting that many carries, and they're just not using him as much as they could. So I don't imagine it's going to be too good of a week for him, especially against a bad team whose only thing they do well is semi stop the run. So that's not going to be great. Ty Montgomery, like I said, he's pretty banged up. Even if he does play, he hasn't been overproducing by any means, and they started to work Aaron Jones in that role last week, so that would be the guy I would try to start over Montgomery. Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray, had to put both of them on this list. Both good running backs, both on a good team, but who is supposed to score? First of all, both of them have underperformed. Neither of them have been great. And even if one of them gets in the end zone, there's just no way to know who it's going to be. It's kind of like a couple years ago, Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman. It was like, who's going to score? Now we know Devonta Freeman has the role, and we're predicting that Derrick Henry will, by next year, completely have the role, and DeMarco Murray will kind of fade into the background. But as of right now, it's split pretty 50-50 between two running backs who are currently not that impressive. Moving on, Lamar Miller against Kansas City. He hasn't had a huge role. He's kind of had Devonta Foreman, kind of starting to take away some carries from him, starting to take away some of that role. In addition, they've become more of a passing team. The last couple of games, you've seen what they've done, and they're definitely starting to look more comfortable throwing the ball, and I think that they're not too ample to keep giving the ball to Lamar Miller. I don't think that they necessarily want to do that, and I think he's going to see the ball less and less every week. So we'll move on to the wide receiver. All right, so first off, I'd say start Mike Evans. I think the Patriots are going to dominate, but that means a lot of fourth quarter targets for Mike Evans. If Tampa Bay has a chance at winning, he's going to have a big week for them. Mike Evans we're going to have to step up, so look for a big role this week. Next is Hopkins. Hopkins has been getting a lot more targets lately. He's looked a lot better this season compared to last season, and he finally has a quarterback who can get him the ball. Additionally, they're starting to throw the ball a lot more, and that his role is growing. Also, Keenan Allen. Excited to see what Keenan Allen can do against the New York Giants. I think it's going to be a big week for him. I think he'll find the end zone. And finally is Pierre Garçon. I think he's going to have a good week against the Indianapolis Colts, getting the ball from Brian Hoyer, who I already said I like this week. I like those two together. I think it's going to be a good combination. I'm going to have to say to sit A.J. Green. That offense has been brutal lately. Everyone on that offense has looked bad. Even A.J. Green hasn't looked great. In addition, they're playing one of the best defenses in the league in the Buffalo Bills. He's really the only talent that Cincinnati has on offense right now. So if I'm Buffalo, I'm just going to shut down A.J. Green, and that's really all you have to focus on for their team to stop that offense. So, I mean, that's just as simple as it gets. That's the number one priority if you're the Buffalo Bills, and I think they're going to shut down A.J. Green. Next is Allen Hurns playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's just terribly underperformed. I know people who are still putting him in his lineup, and it just makes me roll my eyes. It's just a bad choice. He's really not stepped up. In fact, he's stepped back down from where he once was. Also, Rashard Matthews, sit him. There's so many weapons in that Tennessee offense, and his role isn't isn't very big. In addition, that Miami has not looked great, and so I don't think that they need anyone to be spectacular or throw the ball a ton. And finally, Golden Tate playing Carolina this week, or playing Carolina this week. I think they're going to shut him down. I know some people who are kind of hyped about him, but just look at his numbers. He's underperformed. That's all I got to say about it. Let's move on to tight ends. Start Zach Ertz, Evan Ingram, Jared Cook, and Charles Clay. Charles Clay's had a big role in that offense, and he's playing Cincinnati's defense that is just par. And so I think that that's going to bode well for Charles Clay being used a lot. Jared Cook against Baltimore. Man, if you look at that, they're actually really using him, something I didn't expect. Zach Ertz versus Arizona. And the other one is Evan Ingram, the big one I want to talk about, against the Chargers. He has been the main receiver in that offense, with Odell Beckham kind of banged up, who still played great, but kind of everybody else, Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard, really have not stepped up. And Evan Ingram seems to be their red zone target, so I think it's going to be a good week for him finding the end zone, It's about as simple as that. This is the second week in a row I'm going to say sit Jimmy Graham against the Rams. That offense is slow. He's underperforming. It just doesn't look great. Delaney Walker, another situation at Tennessee. So many weapons there. What do they need him to do? I don't think they need him to do too much. And I think he's got a limited and shrinking role. Kyle Rudolph versus Chicago. They're just not using Kyle Rudolph this year. It's as simple as that. The Vikings are really underusing him for whatever reason. And then Jason Witten. I know so many people this year who drafted Jason Witten and we're all excited about him, but he's just simply, he's old and he's not quite what he was, and Prescott doesn't like to use Witten as much as Romo used to like to use Witten. So he's just not getting the ball much. It's as simple as that. Really, that's kind of that. Let's move on to the kickers. Graham Gano versus Detroit. I think it's going to be a good week for him. If Carolina's going to win, I think he's going to have to put it through the uprights quite a few times. Myers versus Pittsburgh. I think that Jacksonville's going to have a good week and put up lots of points, so look for that. Also, and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, but Fairbairn versus Kansas City is kicking for Houston. I think it's going to be a good week for him. That offense is looking great, and he's been putting the ball through uprights pretty well. And finally, Robbie Gould for the San Francisco 49ers. He's had a good season so far, and I don't think that's going to stop. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to say sit Justin Tucker against Oakland. Oakland doesn't allow too many teams to kick a lot of field goals, and Tucker's had a bad year. Jake Elliott versus Arizona. Chris Boswell versus Jacksonville. I think Pittsburgh's offense is going to struggle a bit. And Vinatieri versus San Francisco. San Francisco, and a lot like Oakland, doesn't allow teams to kick too many field goals, and Vinatieri has not been able to all season. That offense is just brutal and struggling there in Indianapolis. So that's that. We'll move on to defenses. Just going to kind of rush through this. Detroit, Buffalo, San Francisco, Minnesota, and Oakland all have great matchups. Detroit's playing Carolina, Buffalo against Cincinnati, San Francisco against Indianapolis. The Vikings are playing Chicago, and Oakland is playing Baltimore. Those are all great matchups. I think they're going to have great fantasy weeks. Kind of rushing through this. Pittsburgh, Seattle, Kansas City, and Arizona all have bad matchups, and I'm going to say to sit them. Pittsburgh's playing Jacksonville, and I like Jacksonville's offense this year, and Pittsburgh's defense has not been great. Don't seem to be getting after the quarterback as much as they normally do. Seattle's playing the Rams. That's like what I told you before. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair. Yes, I think Seattle's defense will play well, but I don't think they will play fantasy well. Chiefs against Houston. I have a feeling that Houston's going to have a good game. And Arizona versus Philadelphia. Philly's offense is good, and they're also very predicated on not turning the ball over, and that's something that you need to score a lot of fantasy points, so I don't expect Arizona's going to do that. Alright, so that's it for this week's Start 'em and Sit 'em video. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Ask questions. We'll talk about any other Start 'em, Sit 'em questions that you guys may have, any questionable players. I tried to cover more players this week. We'll see how that went. It was definitely a lot more work, but if you like it, we'll keep it up. As always, you guys have a great day. Thank you so much.